Why is it that teen violence continues happening, especially in the East Valley? Why do we keep seeing this problem popping up? More instances of teen fight clubs in Gilbert popping up. Community is wondering, why does it keep happening? You had the latest was a 15-year-old girl who was assaulted by other 15-year-olds after she threw a punch at the same In-N-Out burger where we have seen other incidents with Gilbert goons. And just like with the Gilbert goons, rather than seeing somebody jump in there and try to break this up, we saw a group of other teenagers surround them with their phones open so they could get those clicks. And then it all got posted to social media. That, to me, is disturbing. And it shows that we are not getting a message to the young people in the East Valley that, hey, we got people getting beat up here. Maybe this isn't about social media videos.
So if it's disturbing to you,
yeah,
and we are assessing the blame, where do you start with the blame game?
Well, I think this is part of it, actually. I think this is part of it. I think the blame game is part of what is clouding the conversation. And this is what Joanna Allhands was writing in her article at AZ Central. She said, Gilbert is too busy pointing fingers to put parents like me at ease. She points out that everybody's pointing fingers, and they're all working really hard to make sure that they're not to blame. It's a game of musical chairs that I'm seeing right now. So when you say, who do we blame?
Yeah,
I think that we have to consider what we're seeing, not just in East Valley, but we're seeing this elsewhere, too. In fact, you and I are going to have a conversation about the floods in Texas coming up here after 3 o'clock. And you notice that you've got people on the left that are pointing at Trump and saying, Trump, this is Trump's fault that we have dead kids.
Others blame Biden.
And Trump was like, well, this is Biden. I mean, I don't want to blame Biden, but Biden did this. Right. So everybody's pointing fingers. But you know what we're not getting anymore? It was Harry Truman who said the buck stops here. We are not getting accountability anymore.
I just wrote down that word right here, accountability.
So you'll see, I know Joe does a really good job. You have to understand that behind the scenes, we work off the same show notes.
Template,
right.
Yeah.
And so he can see my notes and I can see his, but oftentimes...
Chris has a lot more than what I have.
Well, I was going to say oftentimes we don't necessarily look at what the other person is saying, certainly in depth, but you'll see what I highlighted here. I've got blame versus accountability. And I think that we're living in a timeline right now that values assigning blame to somebody else. And so if something goes wrong, rather than leaders saying the buck stops here, how do we get this better, rather than saying, hold me accountable, I'm going to find a solution, that's viewed now as a weakness. So it used to be noble for a leader to say, I'm in charge. This happened on my watch, and I'm going to do everything I can to get to the bottom of it and make sure it doesn't happen again.
Should still be noble.
You say that.
Yeah.
But we're not rewarding that right now. We live in a society where we look at that as a weakness. It's viewed as weakness in what was once this noble position of being willing to acknowledge the gaps in our society and work to fix them. That's thought of as allowing someone to walk all over you. Oh, the mayor said that it happened to their watch. They must be a bad mayor. Well, I'm not a bad mayor. No, courage in taking accountability and responsibility is being replaced by cowardice. But we're rewarding that cowardice by calling it bravery. It's not. Somehow we are projecting this false bravado, and we deflect blame. And people say, wow, that's real moxie. That's a willingness to fight the evil from the other side. Can you believe those parents that are saying that the police chief in Gilbert, Michael Solberg, is a problem? How dare they do such a thing? And Solberg says, how dare they call me the problem? They're the problem. They're the parents. And in fact, the Gilbert police put out a statement when it came to some of this violence. And hold on, I put it in my notes here somewhere. I want to get this. Gilbert police said in a July 6th news release, I believe
because this fight happened on the 5th.
Yes. July 6th news release that violence would not be tolerated in Gilbert. And the department was firmly committed to investigating all incidents of teen violence and holding youth responsible for their actions. Then they said that police could not tackle the issue of teen violence alone. It requires a shared responsibility and a united effort.
So who'd they blame?
They asked families to help by reinforcing accountability at home and encouraging respectful behavior.
So parents and caregivers.
I don't disagree with the sentiment, except what I'm seeing here is they're saying, this is on you. I agree with the sentiment of what they're saying.
But they're not saying we have to do better as police as well.
There's my issue.
See, I go even higher up the chain.
Okay.
A lot of people have pointed fingers at Michael Solberg, the police chief in Gilbert. You and I certainly have said,
I have, yeah.
This guy has not done a great job. He's not been a leader.
He said the victims were at fault for not telling him that they were attacked by a gang.
But I go even above him in this case. I go to the mayor.
Okay.
So Bridget Peterson was in charge from 2021 until 2024.
Yeah.
So a lot of the Gilbert goons and their activities was under her watch. Now Scott Anderson is in charge out in Gilbert. He's their mayor. I haven't heard a peep from him. And maybe I just haven't seen the stories. Maybe he has spoken up to some degree. But if you're the mayor, shouldn't you be coordinating with your chief of police? Shouldn't you be leading? This is your town. This is your city, Mr. Anderson. And again, I don't put it all at his feet. I do think it is parents. It is police. It is the mayor. It is the kids themselves. It is schools. It is administrators. But nobody, to your point, Chris, nobody steps up and says, you know what? I have to do better. We have to do better. There's no neighborhood watch. There's no group saying, hey, what can we do?
I agree.
And that's where I would even point the finger to a degree at Joanna Allhands at the Republic. Yes, she wrote a piece on it, and she says she lives in Gilbert, and she says that, she has a kid who's fastly approaching teendom.
Yeah.
But, hey, okay, yeah, you talk to your kid, but what are you trying to do to get out front of this? I understand she wrote a piece on it, but can you organize some people? Who's going to take the lead?
So she does address that. Mm-hmm. She says in her article, I want to be part of the solution, not a part of the problem.
There you go.
And I know there are other parents, church members, and concerned residents who want to do the same, but they don't know how to get started. Or worse, they believe their efforts are neither wanted nor will make a difference. And I agree with this. To your point about Anderson, he spoke out about another incident of teen violence, which we'll discuss here at 2:35, and that is that we had this
Morristown.
the Marauders who set a barn on fire that had a bunch of teenagers inside of it, and people are wondering what in the world is going on. This happened at the barn was owned by the Jones family. Anderson wrote that he empathized with the Jones family, calling their experiences deeply traumatic. He commended the Gilbert police officers' swift action that night and noted that two teenagers were arrested within hours of the fire. He said, I fully trust GPD's continued efforts to pursue justice for victims and keep our community safe.
Basically backing the cops.
Gilbert remains one of the safest communities in the country. Does it, though? Not if I'm at the In-N-Out Burger on a Friday night or a Saturday night.
No.
Right?
And Joanna Allhands, she concluded her piece saying, it's hard work. The sad truth is we're either not ready or simply not willing to do it. And I think that, again, when we talk about accountability or the blame game, I think there is a lot of it to go around right now. And a lot of people either commending, you've got the mayor saying, hey, the Gilbert police did a great job. Look, they arrested 2 people here. But do you have any doubt, because I do not, that we are going to hear about another incident at this In-N-Out or somewhere else in the next 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, no, I have no doubt in my mind at all.
Yeah, and it keeps happening because as opposed to someone raising their hand and saying, not on my watch, not with me here, I want to bring a stop to this, it's, saying, well, I need others to help out too and step up.
Yeah, I agree.
Thanks for watching The Chris and Joe Show. Click to see more from Chris and Joe and tap the button in the middle to subscribe to KTAR News.